Arsenal fans, this could be one of the biggest stories of the entire transfer window. For months, supporters have been asking one question. Who is the midfielder capable of taking Arsenal from title contenders to champions? Many names have been linked. Some have disappeared, others have simply been rumours, but one name refuses to go away. Bruno Guimarães, the Newcastle United midfield general, the Brazilian international. A player many believe is one of the best all-around midfielders in world football. And now, once again, Arsenal are being heavily linked with him. But here's where the story becomes fascinating. Despite all the headlines, despite the excitement across social media, despite fans already imagining Bruno wearing the famous red and white shirt, one major obstacle remains. The deal isn't done. Not even close. No official agreement has been announced. No medical has been scheduled. No unveiling has been prepared. Instead, what we're seeing is a transfer that is entering one of its most important stages. Negotiations, patience, strategy, and possibly one of the biggest decisions Arsenal will make this summer. So what is really happening behind the scenes? Why are Arsenal so interested in Bruno Guimaraes? Could Newcastle actually allow one of their biggest stars to leave? And if Arsenal finally complete this signing, how much stronger would Mikel Arteta's team become? Stay with us because this story is far more complicated than many fans realise. Now let's break everything down. Bruno Guimaraes isn't just another midfielder available on the market. He represents leadership, intensity, technical quality, experience, and perhaps most importantly, control. Watch Newcastle play and you'll quickly notice something. Whenever the team is under pressure, whenever they struggle to keep possession, whenever they need someone to calm the game, the ball almost always finds Bruno. That isn't luck, that's trust. He's the player teammates rely on when everything around them becomes chaotic. And that's exactly why Arsenal admire him. Over the past few seasons, Arsenal have transformed into one of England's strongest teams. They dominate possession. They press aggressively. They attack with confidence. But there have still been moments where the midfield struggles against physical opponents. Games where Arsenal lose control. Games decided by tiny margins. Games where experience becomes the difference. This is where Bruno Guimaraes could change everything. Imagine a midfielder who can win tackles, intercept dangerous attacks, escape pressure with elegant footwork, deliver accurate long passes, and still arrive inside the penalty area at the perfect moment. That combination is incredibly difficult to find. And when clubs discover a player capable of doing all those things consistently, they don't usually sell him. Which brings us to Newcastle United. From Newcastle's perspective, selling Bruno Guimaraes makes very little football sense. He's one of the first names on the team sheet. He's become one of the leaders inside the dressing room. The supporters adore him. His teammates trust him. And replacing someone with his qualities isn't as simple as signing another midfielder. Players like Bruno aren't available every transfer window. They're rare. That's why Newcastle are expected to be extremely careful before making any decision regarding his future. At the same time, Arsenal know exactly how difficult this deal could become. Signing top players from ambitious Premier League rivals has never been easy. You're not just negotiating over money. You're negotiating over sporting ambition. Newcastle want to compete for trophies. Arsenal want to compete for trophies. Neither club wants to make a direct rival significantly stronger. That creates tension before negotiations even begin. But football has taught us something over the years. Every player has a price. Every club has limits. And every transfer has a moment when everything suddenly changes. Could Bruno Guimaraes be approaching that moment? Possibly. Arsenal's recruitment strategy has evolved dramatically. Instead of simply collecting talented footballers, they're searching for players capable of transforming the mentality of the squad, players who already know how to handle pressure, players who don't disappear in difficult matches, players who demand excellence from everyone around them. Bruno fits that description perfectly. He's aggressive without losing discipline, creative without becoming careless, confident without becoming selfish. Those qualities are incredibly valuable during a long Premier League season, especially when every point matters. But here's another question Arsenal must answer. Is Bruno Guimarães worth the enormous financial commitment such a transfer would require? Signing the player is only one part of the challenge. There are transfer fees, salary demands, bonuses, agent commissions, financial regulations, long-term squad planning. Every decision affects future transfers. That's why Arsenal cannot simply rush into negotiations. They have to be convinced that Bruno isn't just a great player. He has to be the right player. And that's where this story becomes even more interesting, because Arsenal are not building for one season. They're building a team capable of dominating English football for years. So if they decide to move for Bruno Guimaraes, it won't be an emotional decision. It will be a calculated one. One based on tactics, data, personality, leadership, and long-term ambition. The question now is whether Newcastle are prepared to even begin that conversation. Because until a formal offer arrives, everything remains open. Rumours create excitement, speculation creates headlines, but official negotiations are where transfer stories truly begin. And Arsenal supporters will be watching every development closely, because if Bruno Guimaraes eventually walks through the doors at the Emirates Stadium, it could become one of the defining moments of Arsenal's summer. But that's only half of today's story, because another global superstar has unexpectedly entered Arsenal conversations. A player whose future could shake European football, Vinicius Jr. And what is happening in Madrid may become even more dramatic than the Bruno Guimaraes saga. Let's dive into that in part 2. The biggest question Arsenal supporters are asking right now is simple. Why Bruno Guimaraes, with so many talented midfielders available across Europe, why does his name continue to dominate transfer discussions? The answer goes far beyond statistics. This is about identity. When Mikel Arteta builds a team, he doesn't just look for technical ability, he looks for personality. He wants players who can stay calm when the pressure is at its highest. Players who refuse to hide when the game becomes difficult. Players who demand the ball, even when thousands of fans inside the stadium are holding their breath. Bruno Guimaraes fits that profile almost perfectly. Think about Arsenal's biggest matches over the past few seasons. The margins between victory and defeat have often been incredibly small. One misplaced pass, one lost duel, one moment of hesitation. Sometimes that's all it takes for a title race to change direction. Championship winning teams don't only rely on brilliant attackers, they rely on midfielders who control chaos. That's exactly what Bruno brings. He's the type of player who can slow the tempo when everyone else is rushing. Then, seconds later, he can speed everything up with one perfectly weighted pass. That ability cannot be taught easily. It's instinct, experience, football intelligence. Imagine Arsenal trying to protect a one-goal lead away from home. The opposition is pressing aggressively. The crowd is roaring. Every clearance comes straight back. Who do you want receiving the next pass? A midfielder, comfortable under pressure. A player who doesn't panic. A player who can turn away from two opponents and suddenly launch an attack. That's why Bruno remains so attractive. Of course, Newcastle understand all of this as well. They know exactly how valuable he is, which is why any negotiation would almost certainly be one of the toughest Arsenal have faced in recent years. Newcastle are under no pressure to sell. They are ambitious. They want to challenge for major trophies. Losing one of their most influential players would create a huge gap in the squad. Replacing Bruno isn't as simple as buying another midfielder. You have to replace his passing, his defensive work, his leadership, his chemistry with teammates, his experience in high-pressure matches. Finding one player capable of offering all of that is incredibly difficult, and that's exactly why Newcastle would demand a massive transfer fee. From Arsenal's point of view, the decision isn't only about quality, it's about value. Does Bruno improve the team enough to justify such a huge investment? Many supporters would immediately say yes, but football executives have to think differently. Every pound spent on one player is money that cannot be spent elsewhere. Could Arsenal strengthen two positions instead of one? Would another midfielder offer similar qualities at a lower cost? Would signing Bruno limit future transfer opportunities? These are the difficult questions happening behind closed doors. Supporters only see the headlines. Club directors see the financial puzzle. Then there's another factor many fans overlook: competition. If Bruno were genuinely available, Arsenal might not be the only club paying attention. Top midfielders rarely stay unnoticed. The moment uncertainty appears around a world-class player, Europe's biggest clubs begin watching. That increases pressure, it increases competition, and it can drive the transfer fee even higher. For Arsenal, timing could become everything. Move too slowly. Another club could enter the race, move too quickly. Now let's turn to the other major story. Vinicius Jr, one of the biggest stars in world football, a player who has helped Real Madrid win major trophies and established himself as one of the world's most dangerous wingers. But despite his importance, his future has become a talking point. The reason is simple: his contract situation. Real Madrid want clarity as soon as possible. The club wants to avoid a scenario where a world-class player enters the final stages of his contract without a renewal, reducing their control over his future. That has naturally sparked speculation across Europe. And whenever a player of Vinicius's quality faces contract uncertainty, top clubs are automatically linked. Arsenal are one of those clubs. But let's be realistic. Being interested in a player and actually signing him are two very different things. Vinicius would command one of the biggest transfer fees in football history, along with enormous wages. That makes any potential deal extremely difficult. Still, Arsenal's progress under Mikel Arteta means the club can now dream bigger than ever before. The Gunners are competing at the highest level, and elite players are paying attention to projects capable of winning major trophies. For now, though, Vinicius remains a Real Madrid player. His priority is resolving his future with the Spanish giants. If a new contract is agreed, the transfer rumours will likely disappear. But if negotiations drag on, expect the speculation to grow even louder. And that's why Arsenal fans will continue watching this situation closely, because in football, one unexpected decision can change everything. In the next part, we'll answer the biggest question of all. Could Arsenal realistically sign Bruno Guimarães, Vinícius Jr, or even both? So could Arsenal actually sign Bruno Guimaraes and Vinicius Jr in the same transfer window? On paper, it sounds like every fan's dream, but in reality, it would be one of the most expensive transfer projects in football history. Bruno Guimaraes would likely require a huge transfer fee, while Vinicius Jr would command an even bigger fee, along with one of the highest salaries in world football. That's a massive financial commitment. Arsenal would have to balance spending with financial fair play regulations, wage structure, and long-term squad planning. It wouldn't be impossible, but it would be incredibly difficult. If Arsenal had to prioritise one signing, Bruno Guimaraes appears to be the more realistic target. He fills a key position in midfield and fits the profile Arteta has consistently looked for. Vinicius, meanwhile, remains dependent on what happens with his contract at Real Madrid. If he signs a new deal, the speculation will almost certainly come to an end. If he doesn't, Europe's biggest clubs will be watching every development. For Arsenal fans, the message is simple: don't get carried away by every headline. The transfer window changes quickly. One phone call, one official bid, one contract decision. That's all it takes to completely change the story. And right now, both Bruno Guimaraes and Vinicius Jr remain two of the biggest names to watch before the window closes. But what do you think, Gunners? If Arsenal could only sign one of them, who would you choose? Bruno Guimaraes to dominate the midfield, or Vinicius Jr to transform the attack? Let us know your choice in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more Arsenal transfer updates as every major development unfolds. As things stand, Arsenal remain one of the clubs being linked with both Bruno Guimaraes and Vinicius Jr, but neither transfer has reached the finish line. Bruno Guimarães is still a Newcastle United player, and any move depends on Arsenal making a formal offer and convincing Newcastle to negotiate. Vinicius Jr, meanwhile, remains focused on resolving his contract situation with Real Madrid, making his future one of the biggest stories to watch in European football. For Arsenal, patience could be the key. The club has shown in recent years that it is willing to wait for the right player rather than rush into panic signings. That strategy has helped build one of the strongest squads in the Premier League. Whether these two blockbuster moves happen or not, one thing is certain: Arsenal's ambition has changed. The Gunners are no longer being linked with ordinary players. They're being connected with some of the biggest names in world football. That alone shows how far the club has come under Mikel Arteta. Now it's over to the decision makers. Will Arsenal make a serious move for Bruno Guimaraes? Will Vinicius Jr commit his future to Real Madrid? Or will his contract situation create an unexpected opportunity? Only time will tell. If you enjoyed this analysis, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and never miss another Arsenal transfer update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Before you go, here's one final thought. Imagine Arsenal lining up next season with Bruno Guimaraes controlling the midfield and Vinicius Jr terrorising defenders down the left wing. Would that be enough to win the Premier League? Would that be the team capable of finally lifting the Champions League trophy? Or do you think Arsenal should invest that money in strengthening several positions instead of chasing two global superstars? This is what makes the transfer window so exciting. Every rumour creates hope. Every update changes the conversation. And every official announcement can completely rewrite a club's plans overnight. For now, Arsenal supporters will have to stay patient. The Bruno Guimaraes story is still developing, and the Vinicius Jr contract situation remains one of the biggest talking points in European football. Nothing has been decided yet. But if either situation takes a dramatic turn, you can be sure Arsenal fans around the world will be watching every second. So now it's your turn. Would you sign Bruno Guimaraes, Vinicius Jr, both players, or neither? Tell us your opinion in the comments, because we'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed today's transfer analysis, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest Arsenal news, transfer updates and exclusive analysis. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Come on, you Gunners.